Hello there, and welcome. I'm glad you found your way here. Maybe your day has been long and you're finally exhaling, or maybe you're the kind of person who falls asleep best when your mind has something curious to hold on to. Something soft and strange and endless. Whatever brought you here tonight, you've arrived in good company. You don't need to do anything now but rest. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your thoughts wander. Let your breath settle into the rhythm of sleep, slow and easy, like the hush of waves beneath a night sky. This isn't a place for answers. This is a place for quiet wonder. Tonight, we're going to drift into the space between knowledge and mystery. That place where science, for all its brilliance, still stands quietly, hands open, unsure. A place filled not with failures or gaps, but with questions so big and beautiful they resist resolution. This isn't a list of problems, it's a landscape. A terrain of soft unknowns, of puzzles and paradoxes and silences too vast for certainty. And as you relax, sinking deeper into stillness, we'll begin to explore those places, not to solve them, but to sit with them, to admire the shape of their mystery, the way you might admire the outline of a distant mountain at dusk. We'll begin slowly, gently, with the very first chapter in a journey across 100 things science still can't explain. But before we start, while you're settling in, before your eyes grow too heavy, I'd love it if you gently tapped subscribe or press the little hype button YouTube recently added. It's a small click, but it helps keep these experiments and explorations orbiting out into the algorithm. You can also leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the night. It's oddly fascinating to see where people are drifting off with us, scattered across the world like stars across the galaxy. Now, breathe in and let it go. We live in an age of astonishing knowledge. We've mapped the genome, measured gravitational waves, and photographed the shadow of a black hole. We've sent machines to the edge of the solar system and built simulations of the birth of the universe. And yet, beneath all that brilliance, something remains beautifully unfinished. The more we know, the more we seem to discover just how much we don't. The boundaries of understanding aren't hard edges. They're misty and ever-shifting, like morning fog on a quiet lake. Step toward them, and they move with you. Some of the deepest mysteries aren't buried in deep space or locked away in exotic physics. They're here, in us. Right now, in the space behind your eyes, your mind is aware of itself. It's listening, wondering, interpreting. It remembers, it imagines, it feels. This thing we call consciousness, it's everywhere in your experience. And yet, we don't know what island. There's no agreed definition, no physical location, no equation that explains how brain cells and electric signals become self-awareness. It's the thing through which all science is done, and yet it remains unsolved by science itself. Then, there's gravity, the force that holds everything together, the invisible thread that binds you to the earth to the sun, the stars to the galaxy. We can describe it, predict it, launch rockets with it. But we don't know what island. Is it a particle, a bending of space, a holographic illusion? We've wrapped it in equations but haven't unwrapped its essence. It pulls on us all the time, and still slips through our grasp. There's something almost poetic in that even the most basic experiences, falling asleep, remembering a dream, feeling joy or grief, standing up and feeling your weight, are all tied to forces we don't fully comprehend. It's as if the universe left little notes hidden around the house. Not answers, but questions. Constant, patient questions. And maybe that's the point. Mysteries are not mistakes. They are invitations. In a world of ever-accelerating knowledge, it can be comforting to know that not everything must be known. Some things simply are. They stretch out across time and space like an old melody whose ending hasn't been written yet. They remind us that curiosity doesn't always need a destination. Sometimes it's enough just to wonder, to float gently in the not knowing. Tonight, you're allowed to rest in that not knowing, to listen without pressure, to feel small in the best possible way, not insignificant, but connected, like a drop of water in a vast ocean of questions. You are not lost. You're exploring, and you're not alone in that. Across this strange little planet, people are lying back, closing their eyes, and letting the universe whisper to them through soft words and sleepy science. Together, we drift in the mystery. So, as we begin this journey into the unknown, across 100 unsolved riddles of nature, mind, time, and space, let the questions cradle you. You don't have to answer them. You just have to listen. There's something ancient and sacred about a question that doesn't need solving. It's like a night sky. You don't count the stars to love them. You just look up and let them be. Let them shine. Now close your eyes, if you haven't already. Let the night settle around you. The quiet unknown is waiting. Let's drift into it, together. Time is one of those things we all live inside but rarely stop to examine. It holds everything, every moment you've ever lived, every breath you're taking now, every memory, heartbeat, and forgotten dream has been wrapped in it, carried by it. It flows forward like a quiet river, always moving, always leaving something behind. We glance at clocks, count the hours, watch the seasons change, but the true nature of time, what it is, why it moves, how it shapes us, is still unsolved. It slips past definition, like mist through fingers. We measure it, obey it, feel it, but we don't understand it. What's strange is that the laws of physics don't demand time to flow in any direction at all. The equations work just as well if you run them backward. A broken glass reassembling, smoke unburning into logs, people walking in reverse. There's nothing mathematically wrong with these images, and yet in reality, they never happen. You grow older, not younger. You remember the past, not the future. Time, for reasons we don't fully understand, has a direction. This direction is often called the arrow of time, and it seems tied to something called entropy, a measure of disorder. The universe tends to move from order to chaos. An egg breaks but doesn't unbreak. A candle burns but doesn't unburn. Entropy increases, and time flows forward alongside it. But that's a description, not a cause. It doesn't explain why time feels like it moves, or why we can only travel one way down the line. It doesn't explain why we remember yesterday, but not tomorrow. No one has ever been able to stop time. Not really. We can stretch it, just a little. Speed it up. Slow it down. If you travel near the speed of light, or fall into the pull of a massive object, time will bend for you. This is real, measured, confirmed. Astronauts who spend time in orbit return to Earth having aged just a fraction less than those who stayed behind. It's called time dilation, and it's not a theory. It's a physical truth. Time ticks differently, depending on where you are and how fast you're moving. But no matter what you do, it keeps ticking forward. What's more, we can't touch time directly. We can't see it or hear it. It's not a particle. It's not a force. In physics, time is often treated as a dimension, like space. You move forward, but only in one direction, and never at will. It's as if the road only exists behind you, forming step by step as you walk, with the path ahead still covered in fog. We don't know why the fog never lifts, why the future stays hidden while the past clings so tightly. And then there are dreams. In dreams, time dissolves, moments stretch or collapse. A single second can hold entire lifetimes. Hours pass in a blink. You wake up from what felt like a long journey to discover only 10 minutes have gone by. In that in-between space, the mind unhooks from the normal flow of time. Events overlap, scenes reverse, people who are gone return as if no time has passed at all. You can fly, fall, disappear, and reappear. Time becomes elastic, story-like, governed by feeling more than by clocks. Some researchers believe this dream time may offer clues about how we experience time at all, because while the external world may follow steady rhythms, our internal perception of time is anything but steady. Time flies when you're immersed, drags when you're anxious, vanishes when you sleep. It's tied not just to seconds but to emotion, attention, and memory. Which brings us to something even more mysterious: the link between time and consciousness. You don't just exist in time, you feel it. You experience the passage of now moving into next, this moment, and then the next, and then the next. It's as if your awareness is riding along a track, peering out through the window at the scenery of your life, frame by frame. But where is the engine? What moves you through the frames? What causes the shift from this second to the next? There is no consensus. Some think it's a trick of memory, that you're not moving through time at all, but your brain is constantly updating, layering experiences in a way that feels like movement. Others suggest time is an illusion altogether, a byproduct of how consciousness works, not a property of the universe itself. There are even theories that time doesn't flow at all, that every moment, past, present, future, exists simultaneously, like pages in a book, and we're simply reading them one at a time. But if that's true, what's doing the reading? What part of you is turning the page? This mystery deepens the closer you look, because even when everything else is stripped away, your surroundings, your name, your story, you still feel the present. You still feel the now, and then it becomes the past, and a new now arrives, over and over, like waves on a beach that vanish as soon as they appear, leaving behind only the wet impression that something touched the shore. There's a strange and quiet magic in the fact that we don't know, that even in our most advanced theories, time remains a kind of haunting. It shadows every particle, governs every life, and yet it stays just beyond our grasp. It doesn't stop for us, but it doesn't rush either. It doesn't care whether we notice it, and yet it defines everything we do. So tonight, as you lie back, feel the quiet tide of time moving beneath you. Not fast, not slow, just steady, gentle. You're floating in it, carried by something ancient and unsolved. And while science may not fully explain time, you don't have to either. You only have to feel it. Let it carry you. Let it slow. Let it soften. Let it lull you towards sleep. And somewhere between the seconds, as the mind drifts, time might loosen its grip just enough for you to dream. There is a silence in the mind that science still cannot fill. Not a gap of knowledge exactly, but a presence too intimate to measure. You are listening to this now, aware of these words, aware that you are aware, that strange, soft glow inside your thoughts. Call it consciousness, or selfhood, or simply being, is the most familiar thing you know. And yet, it is one of the most mysterious. We can map brain waves, scan neural patterns, trace the chemical signals that guide attention and memory. But what we cannot do, what we have never been able to do, is explain why it feels like something to be alive. There's no consensus, no equation, no single theory that holds it all. Some say consciousness is just an emergent property, like traffic or weather, something that arises from complexity and vanishes when the system breaks down. Others say it is fundamental, something woven into the very fabric of the universe, like space or time, but we don't know. And every time we try to hold it down and define it, it slips out from under the microscope. Your brain is a collection of parts. Different regions process sound, light, touch, memory, fear, language, desire. These parts activate in clusters, circuits of neurons blinking like tiny cities of fire, but somehow, all those fragments merge into a single experience. You don't see colors and sounds as separate. You see a moment. You feel a self. This puzzle is called the binding problem. How does a brain, split into tasks and regions and rhythms, create something unified? Where does the line between parts dissolve and become you? No one knows how the trick is done. You are made of pieces, but you don't feel like pieces. You feel whole, continuous, alive. Some theories suggest that consciousness might not be in a place, but in a pattern, that it isn't located in any one cluster of neurons, but in the way they communicate, the rhythm of their dance. Like a flame, it has no fixed shape. It exists in motion, in flow, in feedback loops that deepen and echo until they reach the strange threshold where experience begins. But even if that's true, we don't know what Experience Island. We don't know what it's made of, or why it appears at all. There are other minds on this planet, some similar, some staggeringly different, and yet we struggle to know where consciousness begins and ends. Dogs dream. Octopuses solve puzzles. Birds can recognize themselves in mirrors. A plant bends toward the light, flinches from touch, even communicates through chemicals in its roots. But is it aware? Is there a spark behind the movement, or just mechanical reaction? The truth is, we don't know where the border lies. Consciousness may not be an on-off switch, but a spectrum. A slow unfolding of awareness across forms and species, and maybe even machines. And that leads us to the strange question of artificial minds. We've built machines that can learn, speak, generate images, write poetry. They can mimic empathy, make decisions, even hold conversation. But are they conscious, or are they just mirrors? Complex, convincing reflections of intelligence without any real experience behind the glass. If a machine says it is in pain, but feels nothing, is it lying, or is it simply different? Could something built from code and circuits ever host the quiet flame of awareness? Some researchers believe that one day, machines might cross that invisible threshold. That if we build a system complex enough, the lights will come on and there will be someone home. Others argue that consciousness isn't just computation. It's rooted in biology, in emotion, in evolution, in the soft, slow fabric of life. Still others believe we're asking the wrong questions altogether. That trying to pin down consciousness with language and logic is like trying to hold light in your hand. And maybe that's true, because when you really think about it, consciousness is not a thing. It's an experience. It's the backdrop against which everything happens. The canvas of thought, the space in which all else unfolds. You can't observe it from the outside, because it is the inside. It's the one part of the universe you don't just study. You are it. And yet, even that feels too simple, because consciousness isn't constant. It fades in sleep, returns in waking, scatters in dreams. Under anesthesia, it vanishes entirely. Under meditation, it shifts. Under trauma, it breaks. It is not permanent. It flickers. It drifts. And yet somehow, you return to yourself again and again. What makes that return possible? What holds the thread of you through time? Some people believe that consciousness is like a radio signal, and the brain is just the receiver. Others believe it's a story the brain tells itself, and a useful fiction. Some believe it emerges only when attention becomes self-referential. Others say it's a side effect of complexity that serves no purpose but persists anyway. But none of these answers feel complete. They raise more questions than they resolve. Still, here you are, a being made of memory and breath, looking out from behind your eyes, feeling the passing of time, the pull of thought, the weight of wonder. You are a pattern in motion, a signal in a storm, a quiet flame that science still cannot name. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the value of consciousness is not in how well we explain it, but in how deeply we feel it. Maybe the mystery is part of the meaning. Maybe the mind isn't meant to be solved like a riddle, but sat with like a sunset, changing, elusive, beautiful in its refusal to be pinned down. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, your consciousness will change. It will slip into another shape, a slower, looser rhythm. Dreams may come, thoughts may blur, the self may vanish for a while, and in the morning, it will all return, like a tide, like a flame rekindled in silence. You are conscious now, and that is something no one can fully explain. Not yet, not even close. Every night, like clockwork, you lie down and disappear, not forever, just for a while. The lights dim, your muscles soften, your thoughts begin to dissolve, and something pulls you under. You spend nearly a third of your life in this state, still, quiet, largely unaware. Sleep, that ancient rhythm, that soft surrender. It comes for all of us, whether we resist or welcome it. And yet, for something so essential, so familiar, we still don't truly understand why it happens at all. You'd think we would. We've sequenced the genome, charted the stars, built machines that can mimic language and logic. And yet, sleep remains one of the most enduring mysteries of biology. We know that it's necessary. Go too long without it, and your mind frays, your body falters. In extreme cases, the lack of sleep can even lead to death. But what's most puzzling is that sleep doesn't seem efficient. While you're unconscious, you're exposed, unproductive, unaware of your surroundings. In the natural world, that vulnerability should be a death sentence. And yet every animal we know of, in one form or another, sleeps. Birds sleep mid-flight. Dolphins rest with half their brains at a time so they can continue swimming. Insects pause, reptiles slow, and even creatures without eyes or brains in the way we understand them show patterns of rest. Evolution, that relentless sculptor, doesn't waste energy on useless traits. So if sleep is universal, then it must serve a purpose so crucial that even danger couldn't erase it. But here's the thing. We still don't know what that purpose island. There are theories, of course. Some say sleep is for memory consolidation, that your brain uses the downtime to sort and store the day's experiences, like filing away papers after a long shift. Others say it's for physical repair, a time when cells regenerate, tissues heal, and energy balances are restored. Some believe it's a neurological rinse cycle, flushing out metabolic waste that builds up while you're awake. And yet, none of these explanations are complete. Sleep seems to do all of these things, and something more, because sleep isn't just maintenance, it's mystery. Every night you fall into it, and every morning you emerge changed in ways too subtle to measure. Your moods shift, your ideas rearrange. Sometimes you wake with answers to questions you didn't know you were asking. Sometimes you wake with the memory of a dream, a strange, flickering story that fades even as you try to remember it. Which brings us to one of sleep's most haunting subplots, dreams. Why do we dream? The images themselves can be wild and surreal. A hallway that never ends. A familiar face speaking unfamiliar words. Flying, falling, running from something without legs. Meeting someone you've never seen but somehow know. These moments arrive without logic or permission, stitched together from memory and imagination and something else entirely. And they come while your body lies still, eyes closed, surrounded by silence. In dreams, time bends, physics disappears, emotion sharpens. You can love someone deeply who doesn't exist. You can panic at a shadow. You can cry without knowing why. And when you wake, it all slips away like morning mist. Scientists have tried to decode dreams, to trace their origin to REM sleep, to neural activity in the cortex and limbic system. But no one has pinned down their purpose. Some think dreams are simulations, mental rehearsals for possible futures. Others suggest they're just noise, static left over from a brain sifting through memories. Some psychologists believe they're emotional processing, your subconscious tying up loose ends from the day. But none of these theories fully explain the weirdness, the vividness, the sometimes life-altering clarity of a dream. The truth is, dreams remain as enigmatic as sleep itself. And perhaps the most astonishing part of all this is just how risky Sleep Island. For early animals, closing your eyes, becoming unresponsive, laying in one spot for hours, that should have been an evolutionary disaster. Predators don't rest, so why would prey? And yet, sleep persisted. It wasn't selected out. That means the benefits of sleep must outweigh even the threat of death. It must be doing something so vital, so fundamental, that nature simply couldn't design around it. Imagine that your need to sleep was more important than your need to stay alive in any given moment. That your brain and body insisted on this ritual, this nightly surrender, even when danger was near. That's not laziness. That's sacred. Sleep is not weakness. It's survival in its oldest, most mysterious form. Some researchers have wondered whether consciousness itself needs to be turned off for a time in order to function, like a system that must reboot, not just to clean up data or install updates, but to preserve the very architecture of awareness. Perhaps sleep isn't a pause in life. Perhaps it's part of life's rhythm, a necessary movement in the symphony of being, as real and as meaningful as breath. We don't know, and maybe that's okay. Maybe sleep is one of those doors we're not meant to fully open. Maybe the not knowing is part of the magic. You don't need to understand a lullaby to be comforted by it. You don't need to define a dream to feel its pull. Tonight, as you settle in, let that be enough. Let the mystery of sleep hold you, not like a puzzle, but like a story without an ending. Not every secret needs solving. Some just need listening to. So close your eyes. Let go of the need to stay awake, to stay sharp, to solve. Sleep is coming, slow and soft, not to steal you away, but to return you to something older than thought, something that all living things share, whether they know it or not. A gentle reset, a quiet return. The nightly mystery, waiting, as it always has, just beneath the surface of the world. There's a quiet kind of magic tucked inside the human mind, one that doesn't rely on potions or spells or the precision of a scalpel. It's not something you can bottle or measure with perfect clarity, but it has shown up again and again, defying logic, humbling doctors, and reshaping the edges of what we think healing means. It's the placebo effect. A trick, perhaps. A lie, maybe. But a lie that heals. A sugar pill that calms pain. A saline injection that lifts depression. A pretend surgery that brings real relief. It shouldn't work, but it does. And we still don't know why. It begins with belief. Not the abstract kind, not faith in a deity or a political idea, but something subtler and deeper. The expectation that something will help. That healing is not only possible, but already on its way. When a patient receives a treatment, even a fake one, they sometimes begin to improve, not just in ways that feel real, but in ways that are real. Blood pressure drops, hormone levels shift, pain fades. The body, responding not to chemistry, but to the quiet suggestion that it is being cared for, begins to repair itself. As if belief alone were medicine. This isn't just anecdotal. It's been tested over and over again. In double-blind trials, people who receive placebo pills often report the same improvements as those getting the real thing. Placebo effects have been observed in conditions ranging from chronic pain to Parkinson's disease, from anxiety to irritable bowel syndrome. And while the strength of the effect varies, the pattern remains. When people believe they're receiving help, their bodies sometimes act as if they are. But it gets stranger. Placebos aren't limited to pills. In some studies, patients undergoing sham surgeries, where an incision is made, but nothing else is done, report dramatic improvements. In trials for knee pain, people who simply had their knees opened and closed again without any repair often felt just as much relief as those who had the actual procedure. Their limps lessened, their swelling shrank, their discomfort melted away, all from the belief that they had been fixed. What's even more bizarre is that sometimes the placebo effect works even when patients know they're taking a placebo. In certain studies, people are told flat out, "This is a sugar pill. It contains no active ingredients." And still, they get better. Still, their symptoms ease. It's as if the act of taking something, the ritual of care, the frame of healing, carries a kind of power all its own. As if the body understands the gesture, even when the mind knows the truth. Science doesn't quite know how to explain it. Some theories suggest that expectation alters brain chemistry, that the belief in relief triggers the release of endorphins, dopamine, or other healing compounds. Others believe the placebo effect taps into the brain's predictive coding system, the way it constantly guesses what should happen next. If the brain expects improvement, it may adjust the body's responses to match. But that's still just a guess. No scan has pinpointed a placebo center. No molecule has been named as the sole cause. It's still a mystery, floating somewhere between biology and belief. There's something deeply human about this. The idea that hope itself can shift the course of an illness, that the story we tell ourselves about our bodies might shape what our bodies do. It suggests that healing isn't always a mechanical process, that it's not just about fixing broken parts, but about nurturing a system that is listening, waiting, responding to the signals we send it. Of course, the placebo effect has limits. It won't cure cancer or mend a shattered bone. It won't replace antibiotics or undo genetic disorders. But it can ease suffering. It can change the way pain is felt. And sometimes, when paired with actual medicine, it enhances the outcome. Not by altering the treatment, but by altering the patient, by reminding them, at some deep level, that they are not helpless. And perhaps this is why even the most rational minds have to pause when confronting the placebo effect. Because it forces us to admit something uncomfortable, that the boundary between mind and body isn't as sharp as we once believed, that thoughts are not separate from flesh. That belief isn't some abstract force floating above the real work of biology, but an active player within it. This raises quiet questions about how medicine is practiced, about how language, touch, and attention can influence outcomes, about how a doctor's confidence, a nurse's tone, or even the color of a pill can nudge the body toward healing or away from it. These details, often dismissed as incidental, may be part of a much larger and older pattern, a dance between perception and physiology that we're only beginning to understand. And it doesn't stop with patients. Athletes sometimes perform better after taking placebos they believe are performance enhancers. Students test better when told their study aids are powerful. Even animals show placebo-like responses when conditioned to expect relief, which suggests that belief isn't just something humans do. It might be a deeper part of how all brains navigate the world. There is something tender about all this. The idea that your body wants to heal, that sometimes all it needs is a signal, a whisper, a story it can believe in. Maybe healing begins with hope, not because hope changes reality, but because hope is a kind of reality, a change in chemistry, a tilt in perspective, a gentle shift in how pain is held. So tonight, as you lie back and let the quiet gather around you, think of this strange hidden power within you. Not a superpower, not a miracle, but a real and ancient wisdom. The wisdom of a body that listens to what you believe. The wisdom of a mind that can soothe what it didn't cause. The mystery of a system that can be tricked into healing itself, and somehow doesn't seem to mind. The placebo effect is not a failure of science. It is a clue A clue that healing is not always a battle, but sometimes a conversation. A soft agreement between body and mind that says, we are going to be okay. And sometimes, even when nothing has changed, that's enough to begin. It pulls on you even now, as you lie still, not with violence or urgency, but with a quiet, unyielding persistence. Gravity, the invisible force that holds you to the earth, that ties oceans to the moon, that keeps planets in orbit and stars in clusters. It's everywhere, always present, always working, and yet for all its familiarity, we don't really understand what it island. We know how it behaves. We can measure it, predict it, build machines and missions that rely on its presence. But ask any physicist what gravity really is, and you'll see the hesitation, because the truth is, we still don't know. For centuries, we've lived under its rule. Isaac Newton was the first to put it into language that science could build on. An apple falls, not by whim or chance, but because of a force acting at a distance. A simple idea, and yet revolutionary. He gave us an equation, a way to calculate the strength of that pull. And for hundreds of years, it worked well enough. But Newton's gravity was a force with no cause. A mysterious reach across the void. Why did masses attract each other? He didn't say. He couldn't say. Then came Einstein, and the picture changed. Gravity wasn't a force pulling from afar, but the bending of space-time itself. Massive objects curve the fabric of the universe, and other objects follow the curves. A planet doesn't orbit a star because of an invisible rope. It rolls along the gentle dip the star creates, like a marble on a trampoline. This was a deeper truth, one that reshaped physics. But even Einstein's insight left something missing. Because describing gravity is not the same as explaining it. We can draw the map, but we still don't know why the terrain looks this way. Gravity remains the most familiar yet least understood of the four fundamental forces. Electromagnetism, we understand well. It's what makes electricity work, what lets atoms cling together, what lights our world. The strong and weak nuclear forces explain the interactions inside atoms, the reason stars burn, the engine of fusion and decay. These forces operate at microscopic levels, and they are astoundingly powerful. But gravity, in comparison, is absurdly weak. A tiny magnet can lift a paperclip against the entire gravitational pull of the Earth. That's not just a poetic observation. It's a problem. Why is gravity so weak? Physicists call this the hierarchy problem, and it's one of the great unsolved mysteries. Gravity shapes galaxies, steers comets, collapses stars into black holes, but at the level of particles and atoms, it barely exists. It's the outlier, the quiet one in the group, and no one knows why. Some suspect gravity leaks into other dimensions, hidden folds of space we can't perceive. Others propose that it's not a force at all, but an emergent property, something that arises from quantum entanglements like warmth from the random motion of molecules. But these are only theories, none proven, none complete. We've searched for a particle of gravity, a messenger that carries the force, like photons carry light. We've named it the graviton, but no one has found it. It's never been detected, never confirmed. If it exists, it operates on a scale so faint, so elusive, that our instruments haven't been able to hear it whisper. And so, gravity remains in a strange category, both absolutely essential and fundamentally mysterious. It connects everything but explains nothing. Even black holes, those collapsed centers of gravity, deepen the puzzle. In them, gravity becomes so intense that it breaks the known laws of physics. Space and time twist beyond recognition. Information seems to vanish. At their cores, called singularities, our math fails. We don't just lack answers. We lack the language to even ask the right questions. And still, black holes exist. We've seen their shadows, felt their pull, watched stars dance at the edge of their hunger. Gravity also binds us to something profoundly personal. When you were born, gravity cradled your first breath. When you walk, when you sleep, when you drop a coin and hear it hit the floor, that's gravity in motion. It sculpts mountains, it erodes cliffs. It keeps your feet on the ground and your dreams from floating into the night sky. But it also holds hands with time. According to Einstein, time slows in stronger gravity. Clocks tick more slowly on the surface of Earth than they do on a satellite. That means your experience of time is shaped by where you are, by how deep you sit in gravity's well. It means time is not universal but personal, relative. And this too is something we don't fully understand. Gravity bends not just space, but time. And yet time remains a puzzle, just as gravity does. They're entangled somehow, like threads in a larger fabric we haven't yet unraveled. We know they speak to each other, but we don't know the grammar of their language. We've tried to unite gravity with the other forces in a single theory of everything. That's been the dream for generations. Quantum mechanics explains the very small. General relativity explains the very large. But when you try to make them fit together, they clash, they disagree. Like two maps that describe the same landscape in different ways but can't be overlaid. We can't bridge the gap. Not yet, not entirely. So we live in a universe whose most constant force remains unexplained. We wake, we walk, we fall, we orbit. And the whole time, gravity is there, silent, invisible, faithful. It does not flash, it does not shout, but it holds everything together, from the smallest grain of dust to the dance of galaxies. And we do not know how. Maybe one day we will. Maybe a future mind will find the key we've been searching for, will decode the subtle logic that binds space and time and matter. Or maybe gravity is not something to be solved, but something to be honored. A quiet presence that asks us not for understanding, but for attention. Tonight, as you drift, feel the softness of your body against the bed, the way gravity holds you close to the earth. Not as a prison, but as an embrace. You are tethered not by force, but by a gentle agreement with the cosmos. To rest, to stay, to belong to the planet that spun you into being. And in that stillness, know this: even in the face of mystery, you are held. Always. Before there were lungs breathing or hearts beating, before feathers and fins and roots and skin, before thought or memory or even movement, there was a silence. Not an empty one, but a dense, waiting, quiet. A planet wrapped in ocean, raw stone, and chemical mist, orbiting a young, temperamental Sunday. There were molecules then, certainly. Atoms drifting in the heat, mingling in pools, struck by lightning, kissed by ultraviolet rays. But no life, just the materials that might one day become it. And then, at some moment so small and soft that no fossil remains, no mark survives, it changed. Life began, not with a bang or a roar, but with the gentle spark of something new. A self-organizing shimmer in a shallow pool, perhaps, or a fragile strand of RNA curling into just the right shape to copy itself. A chemistry that stumbled into biology, not yet a cell, not yet a creature, but something different from everything else, something that could replicate. And in that replication, imperfect, repeating, persistent, it crossed a line that had never been crossed before. And we don't know how. This is one of the most enduring mysteries in all of science. We know that life exists. We see it in coral reefs and fruit flies, in mushrooms and moss, and the bacteria hiding in your gut. We know how life evolves, how it adapts, how it survives, but how it started, that first flicker, that remains hidden. We have ideas, beautiful ones, wild ones, but none of them are confirmed. None of them are complete. Some scientists imagine a warm little pond, rich with organic soup, fed by volcanic heat and struck by bolts of lightning. The famous primordial soup model. Others suggest hydrothermal vents deep in the ocean, where minerals and heat might have created the right conditions for complex molecules to form. Some propose clay surfaces acting like templates, guiding the assembly of early chains. And others still wonder if the answer lies not on Earth at all, but in the icy dust of comets, delivering life's precursors from the cold reaches of space. But these are stories we've woven to make sense of the silence. The truth is that even the simplest known cell is astonishingly complex. It has membranes and mechanisms, little engines and chemical circuits, strands of code and self-repairing tools. And life didn't start with a full cell. It must have started smaller, simpler, stranger. But what could that have looked like? Was it a molecule that copied itself, using sunlight or minerals as fuel? Was it something that ate other molecules to grow? Was it something entirely alien to our current understanding? And if life emerged once, could it do so again? Could the spark reignite in some quiet corner of the world untouched by today's biology? Or does life, once born, shut the door behind it? Some researchers believe that modern life has already occupied every niche, every puddle and vent, leaving no room for a second genesis. Any new, fledgling life would likely be devoured by the life already here before it ever had a chance to grow. Others believe it's possible, but rare, like lightning striking the same tree twice in a forest too large to fathom. And what does it mean, anyway, for something to be alive? That it moves, reproduces, consumes, thinks? A virus can't replicate on its own, but it evolves. Crystals grow, but they don't think. Fire consumes, but it doesn't build memory. We've drawn definitions, made lists, and categories, but they blur at the edges. Life is not a single trait, but a symphony of them, working together in balance and motion. It resists entropy. It builds patterns. It dreams. The first life didn't know it was alive. It didn't choose to be. But somehow, in that ancient moment, a molecule began to copy itself, and in that copying, the seed of all future complexity was planted. From that seed came evolution, and from evolution came eyes and wings and language and cities and lullabies, all from something that was, at first, just slightly better at staying around than the rest. It is humbling to remember that life didn't begin as a grand gesture. It began as a mistake that happened to work, a chemical accident in a young world, unnoticed by the stars. And yet it changed everything. We walk around in bodies made of trillions of cells, each one a descendant of that first uncertain step into being. Every breath you take tonight passes through lungs shaped by billions of years of refinement, filtering air that has cycled through ancient forests and oceans, through lungs of creatures long extinct. You are not separate from that first moment. You are its continuation. So much time has passed since that spark that it's easy to forget it was ever a question. But it, island, it remains. And every answer we find seems to open a dozen more. Maybe that's part of the gift, that we can live in a world where life is common, but its origin is sacred. That we can rest inside the tension between knowledge and wonder. We don't need to know exactly how life began to be moved by the fact that it did, to feel awe at the lineage that connects pond, scum, and poets, to feel the breath in your chest tonight and know that it is part of something unbroken, something ancient, something utterly unsolved. The origin of life is not just a question for labs and textbooks. It's a lullaby of molecules, a story whispered by the earth itself, still echoing in every heartbeat, every falling leaf, every sleeping animal tucked into its den. And maybe, just maybe, as you drift towards sleep, your thoughts curling like spirals of ancient code, you can feel it. That you, too, are made of the question. That you, too, carry the spark. Memories drift through us like mist, soft and persistent, shaping how we see ourselves without ever revealing exactly where they live. We can recall a face from childhood, a scent from a summer long vanished, the heat of an old heartbreak, or the sound of laughter echoing through a hallway that may not exist anymore. But when we try to trace the thread, to find where the memory begins and where it's stored, we are met with a strange kind of emptiness. We know the brain is involved. Neurons, synapses, electrical pulses. But the memory itself, the experience of it, is elusive. You cannot point to a single cell and say, "There, that's where it island. That's where your 6th birthday lives, or your first kiss, or that moment you realized something was wrong and couldn't say why." For decades, scientists have searched for what they once called the engram, the physical trace of memory, the exact imprint left in the brain. They believed there must be a specific pattern, a network of connections that encoded experience. Cut here, and the memory goes. Stimulate there, and it returns. But it hasn't been so simple. Memory is not a file in a drawer. It is more like a pattern in water, rippling through a medium that's always in motion. And no one has yet found the single place where any one memory is stored. They are distributed, scattered, rewritten, reinterpreted. What's more troubling is how easily memory bends. We tend to believe that remembering is like playing a recording, stable, reliable, a way to access the past exactly as it happened. But memory is reconstruction. Every time we recall something, we are rebuilding it, layering new thoughts, feelings, and interpretations onto the old frame. Over time, the frame itself changes. The colors fade, the shapes soften, or new details appear that were never there before. False memories can feel just as real as true ones. Entire events can be created in the mind with enough suggestion, enough repetition, enough emotion. People have confessed to crimes they never committed, sworn they saw things that never occurred, cried over stories their brains invented and believed. And then there is forgetting. Memories slip through the cracks of consciousness like water through fingers. Whole years vanish. Names disappear. Traumas bury themselves so deeply that even their absence leaves a weight. We lose memories not just to age, but to sleep, to distraction, to the subtle, merciless erosion of time. Sometimes it's not the memory that's gone, but the path to it. A locked door in the house of your mind, the key misplaced, the room slowly darkening behind it. Yet, some memories never fade. We don't choose them. They choose us. Moments seared into the brain with startling clarity. Where you were when the news arrived, the exact sound of your name whispered by someone who meant it, the quiet after the loss, the cold of the floor, the pulse in your wrist, the light through the blinds. These are not stored in a different part of the brain, necessarily, but they are shaped differently. Emotions, it seems, carve deeper grooves. When something matters, when it hurts, thrills, terrifies, or delights, the brain takes notice. Hormones like adrenaline and cortisol flood the system, locking the moment in place. We remember what is charged, what is dangerous, what is joyful. It is how we survive. But even this is not perfect. Two people can live the same moment and remember it in wildly different ways. One will recall it as a triumph, the other a trauma. One will forget it entirely, the other will be haunted for life. Memory is not objective. It's not a photograph. It's a mirror, warped, clouded, shifting with each glance. And then there's déjà vu, that eerie flicker of recognition when something entirely new feels strangely familiar. A hallway you've never walked before, a sentence you've never heard, a face, a sound, a sequence of moments that feels copied from a dream. Science has tried to explain it. Perhaps the brain is processing the present twice, once in fast motion and once in slow. Perhaps a moment feels familiar because it resembles one from a dream or a past that we cannot consciously access. Or perhaps it's just a glitch, like a brief skip in a record, a hiccup in the way the brain tags time. But standing in a moment of déjà vu can feel like brushing against the edge of something forgotten. A message from the subconscious, a glimpse into a memory that never was. The truth is, we carry many more memories than we can access. Studies have shown that under hypnosis, or in extreme situations, people recall details they thought were long lost. Old songs can unlock whole periods of life. A smell can open a floodgate. It suggests that memory is stored somewhere, but where and how and why it chooses to hide from us, it's still unknown. Some researchers believe memories are not static at all, that they are patterns of potential, waiting to be rebuilt when needed, that each recall is a simulation, not a retrieval. Others are exploring how memory might be stored not just in the brain's structure but in its rhythms. Like songs played on an instrument, the memory is not in the string but in the way it's played. These are early theories, incomplete, beautiful, and beyond biology. Memory raises quieter questions. If we cannot remember a moment, did it still shape us? If a memory disappears, does a piece of us go with it? If we carry false memories, are we still ourselves? Or are we always a little fiction, a little truth, stitched together by a brain doing its best? Tonight, as you close your eyes, think of the memories inside you. Not the ones you can name, but the ones buried deeper. The warmth of a hand you no longer see. The voice of someone long gone. The way light filtered through leaves on a summer afternoon so many years ago that it feels like someone else's life. They are there, not as facts, but as echoes, as colors that tint your world, as threads that hold you together, even if you can't find where they begin. We do not know where memories go, but we know they never truly leave. Out there, far beyond the stars you can see, beyond the glowing nebulae, the radiant galaxies, the shimmering threads of cosmic dust, there is something else. Something vast, silent, and invisible. It doesn't emit light. It doesn't reflect it. No telescope has seen it. No probe has touched it. And yet, it outweighs everything else. It shapes galaxies, sculpts the universe, pulls on the very fabric of space like unseen hands arranging a cosmic tapestry. We call it dark matter, and for something we cannot see, it is everywhere. It was first noticed not by presence, but by effect. Galaxies were spinning too fast. Their stars should have flown apart, scattered by centrifugal force, if gravity alone. Produced by visible matter, it was holding them together. But they didn't. They stayed bound, turning with impossible grace, as if held in the gentle palm of something we couldn't name. And so we guessed. There must be more mass out there. Mass we can't detect, can't touch, can't find with light. It became a placeholder in our equations, a mystery folded into the math. But the math kept working. That silent presence, dark matter, wasn't just a fix. It started explaining more and more. The clustering of galaxies, the background patterns of the early universe, the scaffolding that gave birth to the cosmic web. Simulations run without it fall apart, added in, and galaxies bloom. And yet, we've never captured it. Not one particle, not one echo. We've built detectors in deep underground caverns, shielded from cosmic rays and interference, waiting for the softest bump, the faintest trace of interaction. So far, the detectors remain silent. We've imagined what dark matter might be. Maybe it's WIMPs, weakly interacting massive particles, or axions, or something stranger still. Maybe it doesn't fit into the standard model of physics at all. Maybe we've missed something fundamental, and that would be enough to ponder on its own. But there is something even more confounding, something even more elusive. Not the invisible mass that pulls things together, but the invisible energy pushing everything apart. Dark energy. In the late 1990s, astronomers discovered that the expansion of the universe is not slowing down, as we expected, but accelerating. Galaxies are not just drifting away. They're speeding up, rushing outward faster and faster. Something is driving them apart, not a force of attraction, but of repulsion, an anti-gravity woven into the structure of space-time itself. This wasn't just surprising, it was staggering. We had no mechanism for it, no particle, no field, no theory that could explain it cleanly. So we gave it a name, dark energy, and tucked it into the equations. But it remains a ghost in our understanding, a pressure from nowhere, a whisper that dominates everything. Because here is the most humbling part of all. Dark matter and dark energy together make up about 95% of the universe. Everything we've ever observed, all the stars, planets, comets, clouds, collisions, and colors, make up less than 5%. We are living in the margins of a much larger story, reading only the visible ink, unaware of the invisible hand writing most of the book. It's like walking through a cathedral and only seeing the dust motes in the sunlight, never the architecture holding it all above us. And the question deepens, what are we really made of, if most of what exists isn't even in the form we understand? Are we living inside a structure built from shadows? Is our universe not the main act, but a ripple on the surface of something deeper? Some have wondered whether dark matter and dark energy might be the bleed-through of another universe, that just beyond our perception, in dimensions we can't access, there may be a mirror realm, pressing into ours, shaping it, passing through it like a hand through water. Maybe dark matter is not matter at all, but gravity from another universe brushing against ours. Maybe what we call dark is only dark to us, because our eyes were never built to see it. The idea isn't just poetic, it's mathematically possible. Theories like brain cosmology suggest that our universe might be a membrane, a 3D surface floating in a higher dimensional space. Like a sheet of paper drifting through a vast library, there could be others, all around us, each with their own laws, their own physics, their own time. And maybe, occasionally, those membranes brush. Maybe dark matter is the imprint of another universe crossing paths with ours. A gravitational echo, a hidden neighbor. We do not know. We launch satellites to scan the sky, to measure the cosmic microwave background, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang. And in that radiation, we find clues, patterns, small fluctuations that hint at the shape of space and time. But even those clues only point us toward the edge of understanding. They do not open the door. And yet, the mystery itself is a kind of invitation. To look at the stars and remember that most of what exists is not what we see. That we are, in every moment, surrounded by something vast and unknown. And maybe that's not frightening. Maybe it's comforting. To know we are held in place not just by the visible, but by the invisible. That behind every falling star, every turning planet, every sleeping form beneath the sky, there is more. A structure we cannot name. A darkness not of absence, but of depth. Tonight, as you settle deeper into rest, think of that you are not just resting on a bed in a room, but resting inside a galaxy, inside a web of gravity, inside a universe held together by unseen hands. You are floating in a sea whose waters we have only just begun to understand. And still, you are exactly where you need to be. Numbers don't breathe, but somehow they live. They live in spirals of galaxies and the way tree branches split. They live in the curves of nautilus shells and the paths birds trace across skies. You can find them hidden in the intervals between your heartbeats or folded into the angles of snowflakes. They are there when you throw a stone and calculate its arc, even if you don't know you're doing it. There's a precision underneath it all. Silent, constant, vast. And we call it math. But what is it? Really, is math something we discovered, like a continent that was always there, waiting to be named? Or did we invent it, crafting a symbolic language to make sense of a world we otherwise couldn't grasp. The answer sounds simple until you try to hold it still. Then it slips between your fingers like water. In classrooms, math often feels sterile, a set of rules and procedures, memorized and applied, graded and forgotten. But beneath those neat columns and formulas is something more ancient, more mysterious. Math can predict the orbits of planets with astonishing accuracy. It can describe the behavior of black holes, the structure of crystals, and the spread of viruses. It can whisper how electrons dance, how galaxies collide, how time bends. It's not just useful, it's uncannily precise. The physicist Eugene Wigner once called it unreasonably effective, as if the universe itself had been written in code, and math is the key that deciphers it. But why should it be that way? Why should imaginary numbers, tools we created on chalkboards, turn out to describe real phenomena like electrical currents or quantum fields? Why should geometry map perfectly onto space, or calculus unlock the flow of fluids and fire? Why should equations, cold and clean, give birth to predictions that later unfold in telescopes and laboratories, proving themselves again and again? It feels almost magical. One possibility is that math is woven into reality itself, that it's not just a tool we use to describe the universe. It is the universe. That every atom, every photon, every gravitational tug is part of a vast, unfolding calculation. That when we study math, we are not building a system, but uncovering one, peeling back layers to reveal what has always been there, coded into existence like DNA into cells. But there's another idea. That math is a creation, a human invention, a language crafted like any other, meant to describe patterns and relationships. In this view, math is not discovered, but built, brick by conceptual brick. Just as we invented the alphabet to record thought, we invented numbers and symbols to record patterns. It works not because it is embedded in nature, but because we've trained it to. We bend it to fit. We make it match. And yet, it still matches too well. If math were just a language, it shouldn't be able to predict things we haven't seen yet. It shouldn't anticipate the existence of particles we hadn't yet discovered, or accurately model events billions of years in the past. But it does, over and over, as if we are tracing the outline of something deeper than ourselves, as if math is not just a mirror of the world, but its skeleton. Some philosophers and mathematicians have dared to suggest that perhaps the universe isn't just mathematical, it is math. That every process, every change, every thought is ultimately reducible to a mathematical structure. This is known as the mathematical universe hypothesis, and it is as haunting as it is strange. If true, it means reality is not made of matter or energy at its most fundamental level, but of relations, patterns, pure and pristine. A kind of Platonic dream where math doesn't describe the universe, it is the universe dreaming itself into being. But how far does it go? If aliens exist, and statistically, they almost certainly do, would they understand math the way we do? Would they count with ones and zeros? Would they discover primes? Would they see circles and instantly know pi? Or would their minds be shaped by different senses, different environments, different logics? Could there be math beyond what we can imagine, the way colors exist that we'll never see? Or is math a universal constant, like light speed, independent of who is watching? Perhaps alien civilizations, scattered like embers across the void, have been building their own mathematical models for eons. Maybe they too stare into the darkness and find meaning in symmetry, in probability, in sequences that echo through music and code. Maybe they've discovered proofs we can't fathom. Or maybe, like us, they sit quietly under unfamiliar stars and wonder whether the math came first, or whether they dreamed it into being just to feel less alone. And closer to home, Even in our own bodies, math hums in quiet rhythms. Your heartbeat has a cadence. Your breath forms waves. Neural impulses fire in pulses of probability. When you walk, run, dream, fall in love, your biology is dancing through a space that can be mapped and modeled. Not all of it, not yet, but enough to hint at something hidden underneath, something beautiful and immense. Still, for all we can calculate, there is so much we don't know. We don't know why certain equations are elegant, or why elegance often hints at truth. We don't know why some mathematical constants appear everywhere, from petals to hurricanes to stock markets. We don't know where the edge of math lies, or if it has one. We don't even know how many kinds of infinity there are, only that there are more than one. So tonight, as you lie in your bed, tucked into your own small corner of the cosmos, think of all the invisible math flowing around you, the arc of the moon in the sky, the Fibonacci swirl in your fingerprint, the perfect ratio between the length of your bones. You don't need to know the formulas to feel them. They are there, quiet and constant. Like a lullaby the universe has been singing long before anyone knew how to count. Every year, monarch butterflies, those delicate, trembling fragments of orange and black, make a journey that stretches thousands of miles. Tiny wings, no bigger than your thumb, carry them from the northern stretches of the United States and Canada all the way to a few select mountaintops in central Mexico. No GPS, no map, no guide. Just an ancient pattern carved into the architecture of their being, a kind of compass not made of iron or magnet, but of instinct. And what makes this even stranger is that no individual monarch completes the round trip. The butterflies that arrive in Mexico are not the same ones that left Canada. They are their great-grandchildren. Somehow, without ever having made the journey themselves, they know exactly where to go. And they are not alone. Whales glide through the open oceans, navigating with astonishing precision across empty blue deserts, diving deep and resurfacing in the same breeding grounds year after year. Sea turtles return to the very beach where they themselves hatched, crawling across thousands of miles of ocean just to dig into the same sand. Arctic terns fly from one end of the earth to the other, circling from pole to pole in a migration that covers more than the circumference of the planet. Salmon hatch in freshwater rivers, swim out to the open sea, and then return, sometimes years later, to the precise stream of their birth, defying currents and gravity to lay their own eggs where they began. It's easy to assume there must be a mechanism, a system we simply don't yet understand. Perhaps it's magnetism, the Earth's magnetic field acting like a map imprinted on the cells of these animals. Perhaps they read the sun, or follow the stars, or navigate by the scent of distant lands carried on ocean currents. And yes, there is evidence for some of these. Birds have tiny crystals of magnetite in their beaks, thought to interact with magnetic fields. Turtles might use the angle of the sunday. Whales might hear the underwater echo of distant continental shelves. But none of these theories fully explain the precision. They don't account for how animals that have never made the journey before can know the way, or how those who are displaced still find their route, turning and correcting as if following a thread no one else can see. It's as though they carry maps in their blood, and, more than maps, and memories. But whose? How can a butterfly that has never been to Mexico know where to go? How can a sea turtle that spent a decade drifting through vast oceans suddenly know when and where to turn home? What part of the body remembers what the mind never learned? We think of memory as a mental construct, stored in neurons, replayed in thought. But migration suggests another kind of memory, an embodied, ancestral knowing, not passed through teaching, but through biology itself, as if information, instead of fading, is embedded and carried forward, not in stories but in cells. You can see it too, in the timing. These migrations don't happen randomly. They're in sync with seasons, moon cycles, magnetic reversals, temperatures, Creatures know not just where to go, but when, as if they are tuned to a rhythm far larger than themselves, a clock that ticks in the very shape of the earth, and they can hear it, while we cannot. Humans once lived closer to these patterns. Before we wrote things down, before we built roads and cities, we too followed the signs of the wind and the sky. Our ancestors migrated with animals, with seasons, guided by stars and memory woven into story. Now, those patterns are harder to see, drowned out by electric light and satellite signals. But somewhere in us, they remain, and sometimes we still feel it. That pull to move, to travel, to return to a place we've never been but somehow know. The word nostalgia once meant the pain of returning home. But what if the home isn't a building or a town, but a direction in the soul? What if animals feel this too, not as thought, but as motion, as certainty without explanation? Even now, science struggles to explain migration completely. No single theory covers every species, every behavior, and maybe it won't. Maybe migration isn't just a navigational mystery, but a philosophical one. A reminder that not everything knows itself through logic, that some things, some creatures, some instincts, some journeys, exist beyond language. Still, we try. Researchers tag birds and turtles, track them by satellite, create models and predictions. And these efforts are beautiful, valuable, necessary. But the mystery lingers, because even with all the data in hand, we are still left with the question, how do they know? Not how do they move, but how do they know when to start, where to go, and when to return? It is as if the world itself whispers directions to them, and only they are listening. Tonight, if you find yourself wondering what it means to be lost, or what it means to find your way, think of the creatures out there gliding through dark oceans and wind currents, utterly alone but never truly lost, carried not by chance, but by something older than memory, deeper than reason, a kind of trust written into their bones. And perhaps, quietly, you'll feel it too, that there is a place you are meant to be, a direction, not always clear, but real. And even if you do not yet know the way, something in you does. At the heart of everything, beneath atoms, beneath protons and neutrons, beneath the steady beat of matter itself, there is a trembling. A realm so small, so strange, that the rules we trust in every day seem to evaporate. This is the quantum world, a world where particles can be in two places at once, where time and cause stretch and blur, and where the very act of looking changes what we see. It's not just unfamiliar, it's unsettling, because it suggests that what we call reality may not be a solid floor beneath our feet, but a probability cloud we drift through. Let's start with something already difficult to accept. The idea that a single particle, say an electron, can exist in multiple states at the same time. This is called superposition, and it isn't a metaphor. In a famous thought experiment, Schrödinger imagined a cat sealed in a box with a quantum-triggered poison that had a 50% chance of being released. Until we look inside, he said, the cat is both dead and alive, not just unknown, but actually both. It sounds absurd, and yet, at the scale of the quantum, this is the rule. Superposition has been confirmed in experiment after experiment. Electrons behave like waves, spread out, delocalized, until we measure them. Then, suddenly, the wave collapses into a single position, a single outcome. It's as if reality hesitates until someone looks, as if the universe waits for attention before it decides how to behave. That idea, the observer effect, has sparked endless debate. What counts as an observer? Is it consciousness, measurement, interaction? At what point does a cloud of maybe turn into a dot of certainty? But the weirdness doesn't stop there. There's also quantum entanglement. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance, and for good reason. Imagine two particles born together, their properties entangled like twin flames. You separate them by vast distances, kilometers, light years, it doesn't matter. And then you measure one. Instantly, the other responds. It's not that information travels between them. It's that they are not two things. They are one system, stretched across space, tied together by something deeper than location. It seems to break the rules of causality, of speed, of separateness. But it happens, repeatedly, verifiably. In 2022, the Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded to 3 scientists who showed, beyond loophole or doubt, that local realism. The idea that objects have properties independent of observation, and that nothing can influence something else faster than light, is not how the universe works. In simple terms, the quantum world does not obey the common sense of space and time. The connections it holds are not just invisible, they are fundamental. So, what does this mean? Some physicists believe that particles are not tiny balls, but excitations in a field, ripples in the fabric of quantum probability. Until measured, they are not in a place, but in a range of possibilities. The world is not made of things, but of chances. Reality is not a fixed stage, but a shifting haze of potential outcomes, solidifying only when required. And if that's true, then the foundations of everything, from matter to thought, are stranger than any dream. You might wonder, if quantum mechanics is so weird, why don't we see it? Why does the world appear so stable, so deterministic, when underneath it all is this shimmering sea of uncertainty? The answer lies in scale. Quantum effects are delicate. They vanish as systems grow. Decoherence, as it's called, causes quantum possibilities to collapse rapidly in the presence of heat, interaction, complexity. Our world is full of all those things. So we live inside the average, inside the smoothed out layer where probabilities behave like facts. But every so often, we find cracks in the smoothness. Superconductors, quantum computers, photons that act like waves and particles depending on how we look at them. Experiments where measuring the future seems to affect the past. Hints, always hints, that the strangeness is still there, just beneath the surface. And so we begin to ask not just how quantum mechanics works, but what it means. Is reality objective or participatory? Is the universe random, or is randomness only what we call it when we cannot predict? Could consciousness itself be quantum? Entangled, emergent, probabilistic? Or are we just using the mystery of one thing to explain the mystery of another? The truth is, even after a century of studying quantum mechanics, we understand how it behaves, but not what it island. We can use it to build lasers, GPS, MRI machines, and we can describe its math with exquisite precision. But why it works? Why the universe at its core is not solid and mechanical, but fluid and ghost-like, that remains unanswered. Some say the quantum world proves there's no ultimate truth, only perspective. Others say it points towards something deeper than science, something spiritual, and others still insist that it's just math, no more mysterious than a game with strange rules. But whatever it is real. It is the scaffolding beneath atoms, the logic that holds matter together, the pulse behind the visible. Every second, inside you, inside me, inside the world, quantum particles blink in and out of superposition. They dance, entangle, collapse. They obey laws that defy common sense, but never break their own rhythm. And maybe that's the real wonder, that we live in a universe not of certainty, but of mystery. That the smallest things do not behave like building blocks, but like riddles. That the bedrock of reality is not fixed, but fluttering. That even now, as you listen to this voice, there are particles tunneling through walls, electrons choosing paths only when watched, and fields vibrating with probabilities you'll never feel, but that make your body, your thoughts, your breath, your dreams. So sleep now, if you can, inside this strange and wondrous world. Let the laws of probability hold you. Let the quiet weirdness of the quantum cradle you gently. Because even if the rules fall apart at the smallest scales, they fall apart in such a way that somehow, astonishingly, you are still here. Somewhere in your chest, between breath and bone, is a tremble that has no shape. You've felt it when music swells for no reason, and your eyes sting with tears before your mind catches up. You've felt it in silence, in memory, in the heat that rises in your throat when someone says something kind at just the right moment. This is emotion, the invisible wave that overtakes thought, reason, and language itself. A storm that begins in molecules and ends in meaning. And despite centuries of philosophy, science, and poetry, we still don't know exactly where it begins or why. Biologically, we're told emotions are chemical cocktails, neurotransmitters firing, hormones shifting, electrical pulses crackling through neural networks like lightning through tangled wires. Cortisol for stress, dopamine for pleasure, oxytocin for love. The brain, lit up like a city in motion, trying to translate experience into something felt. But even when we can trace these pathways, when we map the networks and name the molecules, something is missing. Because no matter how much serotonin surges, it doesn't explain the ache behind a song, or why some memories come back with a scent, or why we cry when we're happy, or why heartbreak, real heartbreak, hurts in the chest, like a bruise beneath the ribs. Pain from a broken heart isn't metaphor. It's measurable. Studies show that the brain registers social rejection in the same region that processes physical pain. Your body, it seems, doesn't distinguish much between being struck and being left, between a hand withdrawn and a word withheld. The ache is real. It lives in your muscles, your breath, your pulse. It lingers long after the story has ended, long after the logic has explained it away. And then there's joy, that lightness that floats behind the eyes when you hear someone laugh, when you watch someone you love cross a room and catch your gaze without trying. Why should joy make us cry? Why should laughter sometimes sound like sobbing? Or why should a lump rise in your throat during a moment of pure gratitude? What is that mysterious alchemy where opposing feelings blur and merge until you can't tell if you're sad or grateful or just overwhelmed by being alive? Music is one of the strangest keys to this puzzle. A sequence of tones, vibrations in the air, somehow bypasses the thinking brain and goes straight to the soul. A few notes, arranged in just the right way, can lift your heart or break it. It doesn't matter if you understand the language. It doesn't matter if you're expecting it. Music touches something wordless, something ancient. We don't know why. Some researchers believe our brains evolved to recognize patterns in sound as a survival tool. Footsteps, warnings, voices in the dark. But that doesn't quite explain the beauty, the longing, the way a song you haven't heard in years can return you instantly to a version of yourself you thought you'd forgotten. Emotion is not separate from memory. The two are tangled like ivy, growing into each other, shaping the path of your days. A smell, a color, a sudden turn of light can unearth a memory so vivid it floods you with feelings that have no present cause. We are haunted not just by what we've lost, but by what we remember too well. And sometimes, by what we almost remember, as if emotion leaves shadows behind where memories were never formed. And then there's love. The word seems too small for all that it contains. Attachment, hope, fear, devotion, vulnerability. Love makes people irrational, makes them sacrifice, cling, push away, return. It rearranges the brain, reshapes identity, rewrites what we think we deserve. And yet, no lab has distilled the essence of love. We can observe the symptoms, the pupil dilation, the heart rate, the hormone surge. But the feeling itself, the glow, the terror, the weightless hush of being seen, that remains outside the microscope's lens. Emotions don't just color our lives, they are our lives. Every decision, every relationship, every belief is filtered through the lens of what we feel. And yet we're often told to ignore them, to be rational, as if emotion is a flaw. But perhaps the greater flaw is assuming that feeling is something separate from truth, that the tug in your chest isn't a kind of knowledge, that your heart doesn't understand things your head hasn't caught up to yet. And what of those who struggle to feel? Depression isn't just sadness. It's often the absence of emotion, a flattening, a quiet fog where color disappears. To be unable to cry, to laugh, to care, this is its own kind of suffering. And it tells us something too. That emotion isn't just the excess of experience, it's the center of it. Across cultures and languages, feelings echo in familiar shapes. A mother's lullaby, a stranger's grief, the warmth of being held. Though the words change, the currents remain. That's part of the mystery, that we can feel with each other, even in silence. That empathy exists, that the pain or joy of another can ripple into our own bodies, as if our emotions are not just ours, but shared, passed like signals between nervous systems. And maybe that's the point. That emotion, in all its mystery, is the thread that binds us to one another. A kind of language older than words. A compass that doesn't always point north, but always points somewhere. Toward what matters, toward what moves. So tonight, if you find yourself suddenly caught in a feeling you can't name, a wave that rises for no reason, don't push it away. Let it arrive. Let it be the music, the memory, the mystery at Island. Because whatever its cause, it reminds you that you are not just a mind, not just a body, but something more, something that feels. Death waits in the margins of every moment, not with menace, but with a quiet certainty. It is the last chapter no one reads ahead, the punctuation mark that ends every sentence, whether we're ready for it or not. And yet, despite its inevitability, we understand astonishingly little about what death truly island. We know how to define it biologically, when the heart stops beating, when the brain flatlines, when breath leaves the lungs and does not return. But these are mechanical thresholds, measurable only in machines and charts. The deeper question, the one that keeps us looking into the dark long after midnight, is what happens beyond those measurements. Where does the light go when the switch is turned off? Consciousness is at the center of this riddle. We don't know what it is in life, let alone what becomes of it in death. If awareness is more than just neurons firing, if it is something layered and woven, then can it truly disappear when the body goes still? Or is it preserved in some form we haven't yet learned to recognize, like a melody that continues after the instrument is broken? Near-death experiences are often dismissed as hallucinations, brain chemistry in a spiral, as oxygen dwindles. And yet the stories that emerge from those moments are strange in their consistency. People describe tunnels of light, the presence of loved ones, a sense of floating above their own bodies, watching doctors work with calm detachment. Some recount conversations with figures they can't name, but remember with affection. Others speak of time folding in on itself, of memory becoming something not sequential but all at once. And many return with a deep sense of peace, of having glimpsed something larger than the life they left behind, even if just for a moment. Skeptics call these experiences neurological artifacts, the brain's final fireworks. And perhaps they are. But even so, why should the brain, when dying, turn not to terror, but to transcendence? Why should it fill our final seconds with images of light, of connection, of forgiveness? And if death is only the end, then why does its presence so often sharpen life, make colors brighter, moments more sacred, perhaps because death, more than anything, reminds us that time is not guaranteed, that love, once spoken, cannot be unsaid, that every sunrise is a temporary miracle. In that way, death is not the opposite of life, but its partner, the thing that gives it shape, like silence gives meaning to sound. Physics tells us that energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. The warmth of your body, the electricity in your nerves, the information encoded in the fragile architecture of your brain. It all has to go somewhere. Some of it returns to the soil, some dissipates as heat, some may be carried on as memory in others, as impact, as legacy. But what of the pattern itself, the arrangement that made you you? Information, according to the laws of quantum mechanics, is also not destroyed. It may become scrambled, hidden in chaos, but not lost. The physicist John Archibald Wheeler once suggested that at the heart of reality is not matter or energy, but information, bits, choices, observations. If that's true, then maybe consciousness isn't a flame that goes out, but a signal that changes frequency, a song that continues beyond the range of our hearing. Some traditions speak of rebirth, of cycles that echo the seasons, the tides, the stars. Others speak of reunions, or of becoming one with something vast and eternal. Science, careful not to overstep, usually declines to comment, and yet even it cannot deny the strangeness of it all. That particles once scattered across galaxies could form a body, a brain, a soul that dreams and sings and fears and loves, and then one day, stop. But where the parts go, the pattern may echo on. Maybe death is not a wall, but a window, not an end, but a change in state. Or maybe it is nothing at all, a final silence, a returning to the same stillness we came from. But even that idea carries a kind of symmetry, a comfort, even. To have been, for a while, a flare of awareness in the darkness, to have laughed and hurt and hoped and touched the lives of others, to have existed at all, whatever the truth is. It waits for each of us, quietly, kindly, without rush. And while we wait for it, we live, we wonder. We look at the stars and ask questions that have no answers. We say goodbye. We grieve. We remember. We hold hands in hospital rooms and whisper I love yous into the air like prayers. We build stories and try to leave the world a little warmer than we found it. And perhaps that is the most astonishing part, that even knowing everything ends, we still dare to love. We still dare to care. We still pour ourselves into fragile things, knowing they will break. So when you think of death, let it not be just a shadow, but a shape. Let it remind you that this moment, this breath, this heartbeat is unrepeatable. That your thoughts, your voice, your laughter are temporary miracles. And maybe, just maybe, not entirely gone when they fade, but folded into something wider, something timeless, something waiting somewhere beneath the skin, deeper than nerves or muscle or bone. The body leaves behind a ghost of itself, a kind of memory that lingers even when the thing it remembers is gone. People who have lost limbs often speak of feeling them still, an itch on an absent foot, a clench in fingers that no longer exist, a burning ache in a hand that was taken by time or trauma. The phenomenon is known as phantom pain, but the word phantom only tells half the story, because it's not just illusion, it's sensation, as real to the one feeling it as any touch, any wound. You can't talk a ghost limb away. You can't reason with it. It doesn't respond to logic or the mirror of reality. It exists in the space between what the body knows and what the brain believes. It's the mind insisting that something should be there, must still be there, and so it island. The nerves that once carried signals are severed, yes, but the brain does not forget its map. It continues to check the coordinates, and when nothing answers back, it doesn't give up. it improvises. That's the strange thing about pain. It doesn't always come from damage. Sometimes it comes from absence. Sometimes it comes from memory. People have reported pain in dreams, wincing awake with the sharp echo of an injury that never happened. Others speak of touches that come not from the present moment, but from someone long gone. A brush on the shoulder, a warmth in the palm, a sensation that belongs to another time entirely. The body remembers. And sometimes it plays those memories back without asking. In the brain, there's something called the homunculus, a distorted little figure that represents how the brain sees the body from the inside. It's not proportional. The hands are huge, the lips exaggerated, the feet enormous. It reflects not what we look like, but how intensely our brain monitors certain areas. The fingers, for instance, take up far more mental space than the thighs, the tongue more than the back. This mental body map is how the brain keeps track of sensation, how it interprets signals, and how it predicts what should be felt. But when the real body changes, when something is lost or paralyzed or numbed, the map doesn't redraw itself instantly. It holds on to the old layout, like a blueprint from a house that no longer stands. And so, sometimes, it misfires. It sends out signals into the void, and the void answers back with static. Pins and needles, sharp jabs, dull throbs, pain with no source, or pleasure, or motion. Some people can move their phantom limbs, feeling them bend or stretch or clench, even though nothing moves. It's not just amputees. There are stories of people born without certain limbs who still report sensations in them, as if the brain comes preloaded with a default map, and even when the territory doesn't match, the map insists. Then there are those who lose feeling entirely. Paralysis, nerve damage, strokes, and still report tingles, shadows of motion, flickers of presence where nothing stirs. The boundary between brain and body is not a line, it is a blur. And perhaps that's the heart of the mystery. We like to imagine a clear divide, mind here, body there, thought versus flesh. But the truth is far messier. The mind is the body, in ways we are only beginning to understand, and the body, in turn, shapes the mind. They are reflections in the same mirror, feeding back into each other with every breath, every step, every sensation. You cannot touch one without echoing in the other. People who lose a limb often go through a grieving process, not just for the loss of function, but for the loss of sensation, the absence of weight, of warmth, of rhythm. One person described missing the feeling of their foot swinging forward as they walked. Not the act of walking, the feeling of walking. The way the ground would give slightly, the way the toes would curl into a sock. These are details the conscious mind forgets, but the body does not. And when they vanish, the body mourns. There are therapies, mirror therapy, virtual reality simulations, neural rewiring attempts to soothe phantom pain. Some help, others don't. But even when the pain fades, the presence often remains, as if the lost part is still tucked somewhere in the folds of consciousness, not gone but transformed. It leaves a kind of echo, and perhaps we all carry phantom sensations in some way. Not just limbs, but lives, memories that press against the skin like touch, emotions that manifest physically, tight chests, shaky hands, tears we can't explain. The way grief can feel like weight, or how anxiety settles in the stomach, the way we flinch at a sound that reminds us of something forgotten. These are all reminders that the brain doesn't operate in isolation. It filters everything through the body's language. It's easy to take sensation for granted, to assume that when we feel, we're simply reacting to the outside world. But the truth is more haunting. Much of what we feel is created internally, anticipated, constructed, maintained by systems running far beneath awareness, And when those systems shift, through loss, trauma, change, they don't always adjust gracefully. The mind remembers everything the body ever was, and sometimes it refuses to let go. So if you've ever felt something that wasn't there, a twinge, a warmth, a touch, a presence, know that you're not imagining things. You're experiencing one of the deepest truths of human existence, that perception is not just what enters the brain, but what it expects, what it hopes for, what it mourns. You are more than a body. You are a map, a memory, a system of echoes and illusions, stitched together by sensation and belief. And sometimes, even the shadows you carry are trying to tell you something real. A yawn is such a small thing. A stretch of the jaw, a deep pull of air, a flicker of tension in the shoulders. And yet, it is one of the strangest and most contagious behaviors we know. It travels between people like invisible static, leaping from face to face with uncanny timing. One person yawns, and then another, and another. Even reading the word, you might feel the first hints of one forming in your own mouth, your jaw loosening, eyes slightly damp, breath slowing into a wider inhale. It's involuntary, ancient, and oddly communal. But ask a scientist why we yawn, and the answers begin to blur. Babies yawn in the womb, before breath is even necessary, before lungs meet air. Fetuses curl into themselves and yawn, slowly, gently, as if responding to a rhythm older than birth. And not just human babies. Animals too. Cats, dogs, birds, fish. Yawning crosses species lines, appearing in creatures who've never seen each other, never shared a habitat, never exchanged a glance. It's not a learned behavior. It emerges from somewhere deep and shared. But what does it mean? We've been trying to answer that for centuries. Hippocrates believed yawning released bad air from the body. Later thinkers tied it to oxygen levels, suggesting that a yawn cools the brain or fills the lungs with fresh air. That theory, while elegant in its simplicity, doesn't hold up completely. Studies have shown that even in high oxygen environments, we still yawn, and sometimes we yawn more when we're not low on oxygen at all, but in moments of boredom, anticipation, or emotional tension. There is something more complex at work, something that dances between the neurological and the social. Contagious yawning is perhaps the most mysterious part. You don't need to be tired to catch a yawn. You don't even need to be in the same room. Seeing a photo of someone yawning, hearing the sound of it, or even reading a description, as you are now, can trigger the reflex. It suggests a mirror of sorts, a neural resonance. When we observe someone else yawning, our brains seem to echo the motion, as if slipping briefly into their state. In humans, this is often linked to empathy. The more connected we feel to someone, the more likely we are to catch their yawn. Friends yawn with friends more than strangers, parents with children. Even dogs are more likely to catch a yawn from their owners than from unfamiliar people. There's something intimate about it, almost like a secret handshake passed through the body, a way of saying, without words, I see you, I feel what you feel. And yet, there's another theory, one that's more primal. Some researchers believe yawning may serve a thermoregulatory purpose. The act of opening the mouth wide, drawing in air, stretching facial muscles, and increasing blood flow might help cool the brain ever so slightly. When the brain heats up, whether from exertion, stress, or simply being awake for long hours, a yawn could act like a built-in fan system. It's a theory that fits nicely with the timing of most yawns. When we're sleepy, when we're transitioning from one state to another, when alertness is waning or needs to be reset. Others suggest yawning is a kind of state changer, a neurological reset button, a momentary disconnection from whatever we're doing, a mental blink that helps us shift focus or settle into a new rhythm. That would explain why we often yawn in moments of pause, before speaking, before a test, before falling asleep. It's as if the mind is preparing for what comes next, softening its edges. But none of these explanations fully satisfy, because yawning isn't always functional. It isn't always timed with need. It shows up unpredictably, often without clear cause, and always with a strange echo of significance. You can feel the weight of it sometimes, how a deep yawn can ripple through the body like a wave, how it ends in a kind of surrender, a letting go, a subtle shift in tempo. And maybe that's the real magic of yawns. They aren't just about breath or heat or empathy. They're about rhythm, about synchrony, about tuning ourselves to each other and to our own internal cycles. Like a metronome we don't realize we're following, a yawn signals that something is changing. Energy is fading, attention is shifting, a transition is near. It pulls us inward, quiets the noise, settles us into stillness. Some cultures have given yawns meaning. Superstitions warning against yawning without covering your mouth, lest a spirit sneak in. Beliefs that a yawn signals someone thinking of you from afar. In truth, the mystery may be even stranger than the myth, because in all our study, we still haven't cracked the code. We don't know why we yawn, only that we do, and that others follow. Even animals, who cannot name their feelings, follow. A chimpanzee will yawn when its companions do. A parrot will stretch its beak wide in mimicry. Wolves, lions, elephants, creatures of vastly different worlds, all drawn into the same motion by something unseen, a universal language of tiredness, perhaps, or of trust. So tonight, as you lie in bed, if a yawn sneaks up on you, if it curls at the edge of your jaw and stretches through your spine, let it come. Let it remind you that you are not a machine, but a living rhythm, that your body listens to things your mind doesn't always hear, that even in silence, you are connected to others by patterns that cross species, oceans, and time. And when the next one comes, as it surely will, think of it not as a symptom of fatigue, but as a whisper, a quiet signal from somewhere ancient, a breath that doesn't ask for explanation, only space, because sometimes the body knows more than we do, and all it needs is a little room to breathe. The sky, even on the clearest night, is not as empty as it seems. Each pinprick of light is a history, a distance, a time capsule still unfolding. The stars you see are already memories, some burned out long ago, their final flicker still sailing toward us on a tide of space and time. And beyond them, far past the stars and galaxies and shimmering dust, lies something stranger than darkness, a question that has no edge to lean against. What, exactly, is at the end of the universe? We are told the universe is expanding, not like an explosion outward into pre-existing space, but more like the stretching of space itself. The fabric of reality unfurling, swelling, growing larger, not because it's moving through something else, but because it is the thing. Every moment, more space is being made. Galaxies drift apart not because they're flying through space, but because the space between them is expanding. It's a subtle difference, but a deeply unsettling one, because if space itself is growing, we're forced to ask, into what? The answer, if you can call it that. Island, nothing. Not emptiness, not a void waiting to be filled, but the absence of even the idea of space. When we think of the edge of something, we imagine a boundary, a line we could cross if we went far enough. But the universe doesn't seem to offer that kind of perimeter. There is no outside, no wall, no surrounding space. There is only more universe, and it's still growing. Faster and faster, in fact. That's the part that caught scientists off guard. They thought gravity would eventually slow expansion down, maybe even reverse it. But instead, something we've come to call dark energy is driving galaxies apart with increasing speed. The universe isn't coasting, it's accelerating, which means that distant parts of the cosmos are being pulled beyond our view slipping past a kind of event horizon, not because they're vanishing, but because light from them will never reach us again. They are receding into a part of the sky that will remain forever silent. In time, only the closest galaxies will still be visible, and eventually, perhaps not even those. So, what lies beyond the observable universe, beyond that cosmic horizon? It's tempting to imagine something waiting there, a mirror universe, another realm, a second Big Bang blooming quietly in the dark. But the truth is, we don't know, and we may never know. The edge of the observable universe is not the edge of the universe itself. It's just the edge of our vision. The light from farther places hasn't had time to reach us yet, and may never arrive. Still, we wonder, is the universe infinite? Does it curve in on itself, like the surface of a sphere? Could you fly in one direction long enough and return to where you started, having never turned around? Or does it stretch endlessly, never repeating, never circling back? Infinity is a strange concept. It isn't a number. It isn't a place. It's the absence of a boundary, the refusal of finality. When we say the universe might be infinite, we're acknowledging that we can't measure it, can't hold it all in one thought. And maybe we're not meant to, because the universe doesn't just stretch outward. It stretches inward too, into the smallest particles, into the fabric of time, into the spaces between atoms, and the quiet pulses of uncertainty that make up everything we know. At every scale, there are edges, and beyond each one, more questions. Some cosmologists suggest there could be regions of the universe with entirely different physical laws, bubbles of existence where gravity acts differently, where time behaves in unfamiliar ways. Others propose that what we see as the universe is just one ripple in a much larger multiverse, a foam of realities, each expanding in its own direction, never touching, never aware of each other. But those are just ideas, theories painted on the walls of mystery. Because when we point our telescopes outward, past the stars, past the galaxies, past the quiet whisper of the cosmic microwave background, we don't find answers. We find more distance, more stillness, more space. And yet, we look anyway. Maybe that's the most human thing about us. This need to peer into the unknown, to chase the edge of everything, even when we know we'll never reach it. The questions keep us awake. They pull us forward. They give shape to our dreams. So the next time you find yourself staring at the night sky, remember, you're not just looking at stars. You're looking into time, into history, into an ocean with no shore. Each light you see is both a beginning and an end. And beyond that glow, beyond what the eye can catch or the mind can name, lies a frontier that isn't meant to be crossed, only wondered at. The universe doesn't need to explain itself. It's simply island, and we are the ones who keep reaching. Sometimes, you just know. You can't explain it, can't trace it to a clear source, but something deep in you hums with certainty, a gut feeling, an unshakable hunch. You turn down a road for no particular reason, only to avoid a traffic jam you never saw coming. You sense someone watching you just before they step into view. You hesitate before trusting someone with a smile that doesn't reach their eyes. No proof, no evidence, only a feeling. And yet, it's enough. Intuition has always lived in the soft margins of science, not quite measurable, not quite ignorable. It defies neat categories. It's not logic, not analysis, not reasoned decision-making. It moves too quickly, skips too many steps. But in moments of urgency or uncertainty, it often whispers the right answer before your mind has finished formulating the question. Neurologically, intuition may not be as mysterious as it feels. Our brains are constantly gathering information, much more than we're consciously aware of. Peripheral motion, tone of voice, facial micro-expressions, patterns in behavior. We absorb them, even if we don't notice we're doing it. Somewhere in the layered folds of the brain, these fragments are processed, sorted, weighed. And then, without surfacing in language or deliberate thought, a conclusion emerges. A feeling in the chest, a twist in the stomach, a tingling behind the eyes. Our body becomes the messenger for what our mind hasn't verbalized. But that doesn't make it any less strange, because the way it arrives, sudden, uninvited, and forceful, feels like something older, something ancestral. Animals navigate by instinct constantly. Birds migrate thousands of miles without maps. Salmon return to the exact stream where they were born. Dogs growl at unseen presences. Deer lift their heads seconds before danger crests the horizon. Even human infants exhibit reflexes they haven't been taught. The grasp, the suckle, the startled flinch. Some stories go further. People who changed their daily routine for no clear reason and avoided disaster. Travelers who decided not to board a plane, only to later learn of its crash. Parents who woke in the night with a sudden panic and discovered their child in distress. These accounts don't come with explanations, only awe. They aren't proof, but they linger in memory because they suggest we're tuned to frequencies we don't fully understand. Could it be that some part of us is always listening? One idea, explored by neuroscientists and psychologists alike, is that intuition draws from what's called implicit memory, a vast archive of experience we don't consciously access. You've walked down hundreds of streets, met thousands of people, observed countless patterns. That quiet man's posture reminds you, unconsciously, of someone from 10 years ago who wasn't quite safe. That path through the woods curves just slightly, like the one where you once got lost. You don't remember these things, not in the usual sense, but they shape your reactions. Your brain builds an internal model of the world, constantly updating it, refining its predictions. And sometimes, the prediction comes faster than the explanation. This is why trained professionals, emergency responders, athletes, surgeons often rely on instinct in high-pressure moments. They don't stop to analyze every option. They react. Years of experience have shaped their neural pathways, taught their bodies what to do before the conscious mind catches up. It looks like intuition. And maybe it is, but it's also expertise encoded into reflex. Still, there's something eerie about how far it seems to reach. There are reports, scattered, anecdotal, but difficult to dismiss, of animals acting strangely before natural disasters. Dogs whining before earthquakes, elephants fleeing to higher ground before tsunamis, birds changing their migratory routes days before a storm. Could their senses pick up subtle environmental cues we miss? Vibrations in the ground? Shifts in air pressure? The low-frequency sounds of tectonic tension? If animals can do it, could humans once have done it too? Did we, somewhere along the winding path of evolution, mute a sense we no longer understood? Perhaps our ancestors depended on it, honed it, trusted it, and now it lingers like a half-forgotten language in our bones, activated in flashes, sharp as lightning, gone as quickly as it came. Of course, intuition isn't always right. It can be colored by fear, bias, or past trauma. Sometimes, what feels like a hunch is really a shadow of old experience masquerading as insight. We have to be careful, discerning. Not every inner whisper leads somewhere true, but the ones that do. Those moments where instinct aligns with reality remind us that not all knowledge wears the face of logic. There's a line from the poet Rainer Maria Rilke. The deepest experience of the Creator is feminine, for it is experience of receiving and bearing. Perhaps intuition is like that, receptive, quiet, something we don't force, but listen for. Not a tool to be sharpened, but a current to be sensed. So the next time your stomach tightens for no reason, The next time your heart stumbles or your skin prickles in a room full of smiles, pause. Listen, not in panic, not in fear, but in curiosity. Your body might be telling you something your mind hasn't translated yet, a truth without language. In a world dominated by data and measurement and proof, intuition stands apart. Soft, invisible, but persistent. It belongs to the same family as dreams, memories, and feelings we can't quite name. It's part of being human. And sometimes it knows more than we do. Sometimes things line up just a little too perfectly. You think of an old friend you haven't spoken to in years, and just hours later, their name lights up your screen. You hear a strange, unfamiliar word in a book, and then again in a conversation, and then once more in a passing ad, 3 times in a single day. A song plays that feels like it's narrating your exact emotion, or the numbers on the clock mirror your birthday, again and again. These are small things, unprovable things, and yet they nudge at something in you, a quiet sense that maybe the world is more connected than it seems. Coincidence is, by definition, the meeting of unrelated events. But when you're in the middle of one, it rarely feels random. It feels pointed, as if the universe briefly paused to wink in your direction. Carl Jung called it synchronicity, the meaningful coincidence of events with no apparent causal link. He believed these moments weren't just psychological quirks, but glimpses into something deeper, some hidden thread beneath the surface of ordinary time. Skeptics chalk it up to probability, to pattern-seeking brains doing what they've always done. But even if you believe it's nothing more than chance, it doesn't feel that way. It never quite feels that way. The human brain is exquisitely tuned to find patterns. It's how we survive. Recognizing the arc of a predator's movement, the rhythm of seasons, the expression behind a smile or a lie. All of it depends on noticing subtle consistencies. We are wired to connect dots, to see shapes in clouds and faces in the moon, to organize chaos into coherence. It's a feature, not a flaw. But sometimes that feature bleeds into places it doesn't belong. We find meaning in noise, story in randomness, intention in accidents. A string of odd events begins to feel like a message. A lucky streak starts to feel earned. A number repeating itself begins to feel sacred. We call it superstition, intuition, fate, or sometimes we call it nothing at all, just a strange moment we quietly carry with us, wondering. There's a theory in statistics called the birthday paradox. It says that in a room of just 23 people, there's a 50% chance 2 people share the same birthday. It doesn't feel intuitive, but it's true. Probability often runs counter to our expectations. Coincidences, by the numbers, aren't rare at all. They're inevitable. If you live long enough, your life will be full of them. Still, numbers don't capture the emotional weight of a moment that feels impossibly tailored to you. They don't explain why some coincidences hit you like a soft blow to the chest, like something just beyond the visible world reached out and tapped your shoulder. Part of this is narrative. We don't just live, we tell. We frame our lives as stories, with beginnings and turning points, themes and symbols. When something strange happens, we tuck it into the plot line, weave it into our understanding of who we are. A stranger gives you advice you needed at the exact moment you were lost. A book falls open to a page that speaks directly to your pain. These moments become part of our mythology, not in the grand, ancient sense, but in the personal, sacred one. A whisper from the universe, or from our own subconscious, cleverly disguised. And then there's luck. A cousin of coincidence, but with sharper edges. We say someone is lucky when the improbable favors them, but luck, too, walks a thin line. Is it just math unfolding in a way we like? Or is it something more? Some people seem to swim in it, brushing past danger, landing in the right place again and again. Others, despite every effort, find themselves in constant uphill climbs. We try to explain it with effort, with mindset, with attitude. But something about it resists full understanding. It bends the rules in subtle ways. The philosopher Nassim Nicholas Taleb wrote about black swans, rare, unpredictable events that change everything. He reminds us that the improbable is not impossible, that randomness has teeth and wonder alike. And perhaps that's where synchronicity lives, not in proving some cosmic plan, but in recognizing that the world is far stranger and more layered than we tend to admit. It's tempting to want an answer, to pin every uncanny moment to a force, a design, a meaning. But maybe the beauty of these moments lies in their resistance. Maybe their magic is precisely that they don't explain themselves. A man dreams of a plane crash and cancels his trip, then watches the news the next day with quiet horror. A child laughs moments before an earthquake, as if hearing something we can't. A woman keeps seeing the same symbol in graffiti, in art, in dreams, as if it's following her. None of these things prove anything, but they invite something. They invite wonder, curiosity, a softening toward the mystery of being alive in a world where not everything is knowable. They ask us to pay attention, not to control, but to notice. To honor the strange symmetries and small alignments as part of the fabric of experience. Because whether it's divine intervention, quantum entanglement, or just the human brain trying to make sense of its surroundings, the result is the same. We feel less alone, less random, more connected to something we can't quite name. And sometimes, in the silence of a quiet night, when a thought appears just before the phone rings, or when a number keeps showing up like a breadcrumb trail, it's okay to follow it. Not because it will reveal the answer, but because it reminds us that not all meaning is made by logic. Some is made by noticing. In the quiet hours between sleep and waking, there's a moment when the world changes shape. Your body is heavy, pinned by invisible weight. Your breath feels shallow. Your eyes, though open, refuse to obey. The room is familiar, yet strange, thicker somehow, charged. And then, from the edge of vision, something shifts. A shadow moves, or perhaps simply waits, watching. You try to call out, but no sound comes. You try to move, but nothing stirs. You are a mind in a locked body, drifting in the haunted borderlands between dreaming and waking. This is sleep paralysis, and if you've never experienced it, it's hard to imagine how real it feels. If you have, you already know. It's one of the most terrifying things that can happen to a conscious mind, and it's far more common than most people realize. Across cultures and centuries, people have described eerily similar encounters: shadowy figures at the bedside, a crushing sensation on the chest, a sense of presence that feels intelligent and malevolent. In Newfoundland, they called it the old hag, a crone who sits on your chest, stealing your breath. In Japan, it's kanashibari, a spiritual binding. In parts of West Africa, they call it the devil on your back. And despite vast distances and different beliefs, the stories overlap. Darkness, paralysis, dread. Science has some answers, of course. During REM sleep, your brain paralyzes your muscles to prevent you from acting out dreams. Occasionally, you wake up before the paralysis has worn off. You're conscious, but trapped. The brain, still halfway in a dream state, begins to fill in the blanks, generating hallucinations to explain the inexplicable stillness. It's a glitch, they say, a misfire, a biological hiccup in the machinery of sleep. But even scientists admit that they don't fully understand it. The consistency of the visions, those humanoid shapes, those watching eyes, remains a puzzle. Why are the hallucinations so similar, so archetypal, so vivid? Why do so many people see what they later describe as the same entities? Some researchers propose that it's deep-rooted evolutionary fear, our brains conjuring predators in the dark, a relic of ancient survival instinct. Others suggest it may tap into the amygdala, the brain's fear center, activating a fight or flight response without a clear enemy. But none of this explains why the experiences often feel meaningful. Not just frightening, but charged. Some people report messages. Others, a sense of revelation. A few feel comfort instead of fear. A presence, not of dread, but of awe. And then there are the visions that come outside of sleep. The ones that arrive in grief, or isolation, or the stillness after trauma. The ghost at the end of the bed. The scent of a lost parent's perfume. The flicker of movement in an empty hallway. A voice you loved calling your name when no one's home. Are these two glitches in perception? Memory echoes? Or are they something else entirely? The line between perception and reality is thinner than we like to believe. The brain is a storyteller. It constructs the world second by second, layering sight, sound, memory, and expectation into what we call real. But sometimes, it tells stories that don't align with physical evidence. A face in the curtain folds. A whisper in white noise. A chill that arrives for no reason. Hallucinations are not always symptoms of illness. In fact, they can be quite common in healthy people under stress, sleep deprivation, or emotional strain. Soldiers, astronauts, mountaineers, even long-distance truck drivers have reported seeing people who aren't there, hearing voices on silent radios. These moments are often brief, but they leave an impression. They stay with you. There's a growing field of study around bereavement hallucinations. More than half of grieving people report sensing the presence of the one they lost. Sometimes it's a dream. Sometimes it's waking. Often it brings comfort rather than fear. A kind of last visit. These are not always framed as supernatural. Many accept them as psychological, even necessary, but the boundary blurs. In Iceland, belief in spirits and hidden folk remains common, even among the well-educated. In some regions, road construction has been altered to avoid disturbing rocks believed to house elves. In the Philippines, stories of spirits are deeply woven into daily life. In many indigenous cultures, the line between the seen and unseen is not a barrier, but a thread. Western science has often dismissed these beliefs, labeling them as superstition. But perhaps, in doing so, it has ignored something vital about the way humans experience the world. Even in sterile labs, where controlled sleep studies are conducted, participants under observation report the same phenomena. Dark figures, pressure, voices. It is not just cultural. It is human, universal, recurring. Could there be more to these visitations than misfiring neurons? Could our brains be tuning, however briefly, into something layered into the fabric of existence? Are ghosts just memories with momentum? Are the shadow people reflections of parts of ourselves, or something else entirely? We don't know, and maybe we're not meant to. Maybe the point is not to solve the mystery, but to feel it. There's something humbling in knowing that even with brain scans, data sets, and long Latin words for every part of the mind, there are still moments that shake our understanding. Moments where a shadow in the corner isn't just a shadow, where waking and dreaming merge, where perception becomes a doorway. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, consider this. Your mind is about to take you somewhere no one else can follow. It may build a world. It may play a memory. Or it may offer you something stranger, a glimpse of the deep, poetic unconscious. And if, for a second, something visits you there, a sound, a presence, a shape, but you don't need to be afraid. You are not broken. You are not alone. You are standing, if only for a breath, on the thin and flickering line between worlds. The night has grown thick and quiet now, the air softened by time. There's nothing left for you to do, and nowhere left to be. Just here, just this breath, just the gentle thrum of your heart, steady as a satellite orbiting some distant thought. You've wandered with me through layers of mystery, some strange, some familiar, all unfinished. And now we find ourselves here, at the edge of the last chapter, not to solve, not to finish, but to simply rest in the company of questions. You might have come here seeking answers, but maybe what you found instead was something quieter, something warmer, a reminder that the world is not meant to be fully understood before sleep, that it's okay to drift without direction, that not every thread needs to be tied before you close your eyes. All around us, mysteries bloom like galaxies. They spin without asking permission, without waiting to be measured. Questions about time and thought, dreams and gravity, feelings and stars. And even if we invent clever tools or build magnificent machines, even if we name every force and diagram every system, the heart of it all remains a kind of poetry, a secret that won't quite let itself be translated. Why do we feel the pull of the moon even when it's hidden behind clouds? Why does a song from childhood make us cry on an ordinary Tuesday? Why does silence sometimes say more than sound? Why does the dark make the light so lovely? Some of these questions may be solved in your lifetime. Some may take generations, stitched together by researchers and dreamers, by algorithms and chance. Others may slip forever through our grasp, like water in cupped hands. But perhaps that's what makes them beautiful. Their resistance to being pinned down is what gives them weight. Not everything must be explained to be meaningful. There's a kind of sacredness in not knowing, in standing before the vast and unsolvable and choosing wonder instead of fear. To look at the sky not as a puzzle, but as a poem, to feel your own mind, mysterious and flickering, as a miracle in its own right. You are part of this great unknowing. Your thoughts, your memories, your dreams, at night, they are stitched into the same cosmic cloth as black holes and butterfly migrations, as phantom pains and déjà vu. You carry questions inside you that no one else will ever phrase in quite the same way. And those questions are not flaws. They are constellations. Sometimes we talk as though the unknown is a thing to be defeated, as though it were a dragon to be slain or a mountain to be leveled. But what if the unknown is more like a garden, something to walk through slowly, with curiosity and care, something that grows wild because wildness is its purpose? It's a beautiful thing, really, that you'll never run out of things to wonder about, that even in your quietest moments, the universe is still writing riddles in the margins. It doesn't need you to solve them. It only asks that you notice. So tonight, as your mind begins to settle and your body sinks into stillness, know that it's okay to rest with questions unanswered. The world continues to spin. The stars keep blinking. The soft hum of gravity holds you close to the earth, just as it always has. And in this gentle in-between space, between waking and sleep, between certainty and mystery, you are safe. You don't need to know how the story ends. You don't need to name every shadow or understand every light. You don't even need to remember everything we've wandered through together. The questions will still be here tomorrow, still glowing, still unfolding, still waiting, like unopened letters from the cosmos. And if one day you return to them with new eyes or an older heart, they will greet you just the same. Because the mysteries are patient. They are not afraid of time. They do not demand your urgency, only your presence. So if you feel small in the face of it all, let that be a comfort, because it means you are part of something vast. And tonight, as you rest, the world remains unsolved. But perhaps that's the point. Not every answer is needed before sleep. Some are better left hanging, like stars suspended over a quiet earth.